Today's Three Blind Mice build is going to go boldly where no restorer has gone before. Don't go away. Hello friends and welcome to Fat Guy Productions. I'm Paul, coming to you as always from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Today, Three Blind Mice build is going to be a long one, but hopefully it'll be worth it.
12, 11, 10.
In 1967,
9,
NASA launched Apollo 4 into the void of space. This was the first launch of the amazing Saturn V rocket, which would eventually take mankind to the moon.
We have liftoff. We have liftoff at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
When I first saw this Hot Wheels Haulin gas tanker, I immediately thought of NASA and just knew I would have to do a Saturn V inspired build. This great casting might be one of my favorite modern-day die-cast vehicles of all time, and it is a real home run for a build like this because the possibilities are endless. I start this build as always by taking the casting apart, which proved to be a real bear. It made me wonder, how are the others who are doing this build fared with getting this thing apart? It really broke my back. There is, of course, a base, a plastic insert that has the tank tops and the interior molded into it, and finally some window glass. The casting comes with a perfect set of reel riders that in my opinion are so good, I just won't touch them. Here's a little something I wanted to show you with my shielded drilling technique. Aside from helping you drill the car apart, the Vix bits are great for cleaning up the top of the post. Just find one that fits over the post and start drilling. The bit keeps everything centered and you end up with a perfectly prepared post. Anyhow, this is a build where I did in fact remember to drill out the post. So after drilling, I tapped them, and now I can go ahead and turn to removing the paint. These special edition Hot Wheels are notoriously hard to strip, but into the warm liquid goo it goes with my fingers crossed. I plan to leave this casting in the goo for at least a day or two. So we are now at a point of the build that is going to make this video, well, long. I admit it, it's going to be long, but it's going to be worth it. This build just screams that it needs glowing portholes in its top. So to achieve that, I'm going to make a new clear insert. To start, I need to make a two-part mold of the original insert. I begin by filling and building up around the bottom of the insert with a sulfur-free clay. I fill the cavity and the wheel wells along with any small detail areas so that only the top surface remains showing. This top will be one half of the mold. Now I'll build up some clay on the mold box bottom and then press the part down into it. I'll take some additional clay and clean up any gaps and kind of generally smooth things out. Once I'm happy with the clay placement, I'll smooth out the rough spots with a tool. Finally, I'll poke some holes in the surrounding clay to create registration spots for the top and the bottom of the mold. I'm just using the back of my knife for one side and a skewer on the other. Now I can finish up the mold box. I just glue the sides on with some wood glue, and then I can set the box aside to dry. I'll be putting out a video on basic casting soon, so be sure to watch for it. With the mold box ready, I can mix up some silicone to make the first half of the mold. I'll be using Umu 30 by Smooth-On. This is a simple 1-to-1 mix by volume, so it's really easy to work with. The key here is to get a really good mix. Poorly mixed silicone can fail to cure properly and will cause giant headaches. With the Umu thoroughly mixed, I'll go ahead and pour it into the mold in a thin stream down into one of the lowest spots in the mold. Just let the Umu flow into the rest of the mold on its own. I'll give the mold box a few taps to settle things down and help clear out any bubbles, and then I can set this aside for at least 6 hours to dry. After the silicone has cured, I can take apart the mold box and very carefully remove the clay, trying not to disturb the embedded part. Once all the clay is gone, I can put the mold back into the mold box with the part facing up and then put the walls back up. Now we can cast the second half of this 2-part mold, but first I'll need to apply some mold release. Silicone will stick to silicone and you will never get the halves apart without a release agent. In this case, I'll just use Vaseline. I just brush it all over the surface of the mold and the part, and now we can go ahead and pour in the second half of our silicone. I mix up a little more umu and pour it into the mold box the same way I did for the first half. Again, 6 more hours for curing. We finally get a chance to see if the mold looks right. We won't really know until we cast a part in it, but this is still a huge moment. I carefully pull apart the mold box and gingerly remove my 2-part mold. Very, very gently, I pull the 2 halves of the mold apart and see what we have. Success. Ah, man. Success, success, success. Boy, am I happy. This looks like it came out great. After cleaning up the mold a bit, I can now cast the new part in clear resin. For this, I'm going to be using Amazing Clear Cast by Alumilite. This is a great resin, and again, it's simple to work with. It's just a 1-to-1 mix by volume. Like the silicone, thorough mixing is key here. If you don't do it right, your part won't solidify. With the resin mixed, I can now pour it into the bottom part of my mold. I make sure to get a little bit into all of the nooks and crannies, and I also want to make sure I put enough in that it will squeeze out when I put the 2 mold halves together. So, yes, this is going to get messy. Be prepared. With the resin in the mold, I put the top on and weigh it down with resin bottles so it doesn't float up and ruin your part. Then I go ahead and set it aside to dry for at least 24 hours. To keep my mind off the potential major resin casting victory or heartbreaking defeat, I'll keep myself busy with other parts of the build. I pulled the body from the warm liquid goo, and I'm happily surprised to find that the paint is just literally falling off the casting. I'll run it to the sink and give it a good washing. I'm back from the sink, and I have to be honest, I'm a little sad. The body is spectacular right out of the stripper. I'm kind of sad that I'm going to paint over it, but it really is too late to change gears here. Still, the casting is beautiful. I could just very happily leave this casting this natural color, protect it with some Renaissance wax, and call it a day. It's a shame. You don't often get a casting that looks this good right out of the stripper. My clear part has been curing for about 30 hours, so it's time to see if we have an epic fail or a happy success. I start to carefully and slowly pull the halves of the mold apart. Yes, I am holding my breath right now. As the mold comes apart, I can see the cast piece It has indeed cured, but I need to get it out of the mold to see if it truly worked, so I gently pry it out. As you can see, the resin is still a bit pliable, so once it's out of the mold, it'll need to sit a little bit longer, but it really shouldn't be an issue. Finally, after all that effort, the part comes out and it looks great. I am super happy. This is my first complex 2-part mold and it all worked out. After letting the part sit for about another 12 hours, I clean up the flash and I can now give it a test fit to see how well everything worked. Like a glove? Man, I am so happy. Everything is starting to fall in place. Now I can really focus on finishing this project up, so I'm going to head over to the paint booth and prime this beautiful casting. I'm just using some Tamiya Fine Primer, my favorite. Then I'll let it dry, and then I can go ahead and hit the body up with some Tamiya X2 Gloss White paint. I'm making sure to use gloss white paint here because I need a nice smooth finish for the decals to sit on before I seal it all up with clear coat. Boy, the paint really is looking amazing. So, now it's time for the decals. I made these decals on my new laser printer setup. I won't go into details here, but I am working on a video that will show that whole system. I made side markings based on the Saturn V, and I even gave the casting a small roll pattern. While the Saturn V didn't have a NASA meatball on it, I just had to put them on this rig. I'm super happy with this. I'll coat the decals with a little bit of setting solution, then I can set it aside to dry overnight before heading back to the paint booth. With everything thoroughly dry, I can bust out some urethane clear coat from the Redline shop to seal this all up and give it that amazing glossy finish that you all know I'm addicted to. It sure is looking great, and I really only have one major hurdle left to clear before I can call this project a total success. Now I need to light this project up. Since I can make new parts now, I can cut the original insert to do some test fitting for the light that I'm going to put in. I'll be using a 1.8mm blue LED and a small 3-volt battery that I got from evandesign.com. These guys are great, and I just simply can't say enough about them. Perhaps I'll reach out to them for some stuff so I can do a whole video on LEDs and their products. I'm going to leave a link in the description to their website. With all the test fitting done, I can go ahead and trim up the clear insert. Then I'll paint it all flat black except for the portholes in the top. I'm going to paint both sides, inside and out, to ensure that the light doesn't bleed out where I don't want it. Once it's dry, I can install the light and assemble the build. I pop the windshield glass in, and then the clear painted insert. The battery is going to be glued into the base with a little bit of 5-minute epoxy, and the light will be glued into the top. I'll just coil up the wire and stuff it and the switch into the body, and then bring them together. Everything will be held together with 2 button-head screws. Someday I might try to find a way to mount the on and off switch, but for now I'll just have to open the car up to turn on the light. With everything together, I can go ahead and put the finishing touches on the car with some Tamiya paint and panel liner, and then I can finally call this one done. Well, there you have it, my 3 Blind Mice Haulin' Gas build. It was a lot of work, but a ton of fun. Sorry the video was so long, but there was just too much in this process to cut it much shorter. If you like this video, please give it a giant thumbs up, click subscribe, and be sure to click the notification bell. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. It's time to split. I hope today is an amazing day for you, and that every day after is a perfect copy. Until next time, this is Paul from Fat Guy Productions saying be good.